You're listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 106. It's so important to invest in yourself and in the process of creating and growing a business. And today's guest helps us do just that. So if you're needing a loving nudge to help you navigate the entrepreneurial world, tune in now. We cover why personal growth is key to growing your business, how consistent action creates momentum, why perfection is unrelatable, and how to trust yourself. So what are we waiting for? Let's jump on in. Hey there, I'm your host, Jessica Fergon, and I am passionate about doing the inner work needed to reach your goals. Let me be your guide as we navigate all the fears and insecurities that surface when it's time to step outside of your comfort zone. Along with my knowledgeable guests and industry experts, I'm here to teach you how to reawaken your life purpose and passion and create the steps to turn your intentions into action. Ultimately, my goal is to empower you to rise above those blocks holding you back and start living a life that you are worthy and deserving of. So come on, it's time to slow down, find a comfy spot with your favorite organic tea, and get inspired. Thank you for tuning in to the Love Unplugged podcast. Hello, loves. Today I am joined by the lovely Kelly Marcediak, founder of The Freedom Babe and host of the Freedom Babe podcast. She is obsessed with helping driven women make the transition from a job and life that they are not totally in love with to a business and lifestyle that they totally adore. And I absolutely love that. I love following you and seeing all this advice and everything that you're sharing with your community. It's incredible. So I can't wait to dive into this with you, Kelly. So welcome. I'm just so honored to have you as my guest. And I'm so excited to learn all about your story and advice. But before we start, for those that don't know you yet, I would love for you to share a little bit more about you personally.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. So I'm Kelly and I am from Toronto, Canada. And yeah, I mean, for so long I was just working jobs that weren't bringing me fulfillment, and then that led to network marketing, and then that was fulfilling for a while until it wasn't again, and I was just like, what the heck? So I feel like I've just been on a personal journey of finding fulfillment, and that has led me to starting my own coaching business, which is the Freedom Babe, where I help other women do the same, because I know what it's like to feel so annoyed sitting at that desk job or getting shitty tips. And I was just like, if I found this, if I figured out how to build an online business in my early 20s, I was like, I would have been so much further ahead. So that's kind of what stemmed the coaching business and the Freedom Babe. And yeah, just all about helping women achieve that freedom.
I love that. And, as good as it is to have that stable job, I hate being stuck to a chair at my desk for 8 hours a day. I just want that freedom to be able to do, what you want, set your own schedule, work from wherever you want, things like that. And I just love how you help women to be able to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just so important. And I think so many of us stay at those jobs or stay in those situations where we're not totally happy because we just don't believe that there's anything more for us. But when we're in those situations where we're not happy or not feeling fulfilled, that's all actually the universe trying to be like, hey, you're meant for more. Wake up. You're in this situation to help you realize that there's something better for you. But a lot of us just, I don't want to say have low standards, but we just don't look at ourselves in terms of having the power that we truly do have. But once we wake up to that potential and wake up to how powerful we are, we can really create the lives that we dream about.
100%. I always told myself, I'm like, I need to be allergic to mediocrity or to settling so that I'm constantly just striving for more and I'm not just settling in my life and just being okay with how things are.
100%. And I think that one thing I will say with that is I think entrepreneurs can be on the very extreme end of that sometimes, where we forget to be grateful for everything we've accomplished and we forget to celebrate on the way. So I think, or along the way. So I think it's so important to be constantly going after your dreams and working to that next level, but at the same time be showing yourself so much gratitude for everything that you're doing and for everything you're accomplishing and celebrating on the way as well. Because I've definitely had my moments where I'm like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And I like haven't really taken in all that I've done. And yeah, when you're on that roller coaster, you're also just like constantly chasing the next thing. So like pausing and celebrating what you've accomplished is so important too.
100%. Now, I want to go back in time and start at the beginning of your journey, really. What was that like leading up to creating the Freedom Babe?
Okay, so I'm going to take you guys back to high school. If you heard me on other podcasts, you may have heard this story before. It always comes out a little bit differently. But basically, I just remember being in high school, thinking about applying to university, and not knowing what to apply for because I never had a certain job stick out where I was like, I want to do that. Or at least that like stuck with me long enough. Like when you're a kid, obviously you're like, I want to be a teacher or a singer or whatever. But there was never anything that I felt really called to explore with my career. And I really felt like I was choosing something out of a hat. I was like, why? Like, this is so weird. They just make us like choose something. Like, shouldn't we be a bit more trained in terms of like how to find that? But I didn't really question it. I just kind of went with it. And I feel like that's been a reoccurring theme until I became an entrepreneur with like what would be moments where I would feel like I should be questioning society a little bit, but not doing that and just kind of rolling with it, which ultimately led to me continuing to be unfulfilled. But anyways, I was like, I feel like I'm choosing out of a hat, but sure, let's apply to these different universities for these different programs. And instead of picking what like the university I wanted to go to because of the program, I pretty much chose it based on the fact that it was pretty and that it was like a vibe and I liked the energy. I didn't know, didn't consider myself like an intuitive person back then, but I know that I always was. So I think that I just picked up on some good energy and it was just the one that felt right. So I went with that. And even still, like I studied health sciences for 4 years at university. I remember getting to the 4th year and not knowing what kind of jobs I would apply to afterwards. And I was like, how is this happening again? Like I just did all this school and I still don't know what I can apply for or what I want to do. And I don't know, maybe that was my fault. Maybe I just missed that day or I was like hungover and skipped class or something, but I didn't know what to do with my degree. And I was like, what? And I, again, instead of like sitting down and being like, what is it that I desire? Like asking myself some questions or reflecting more, I just, again, did kind of what society told me to do, which was like, either go and work a job or do more school until you figure out what job that is. So I applied to nursing school in my 4th year, like an accelerated 2-year program, didn't get in anywhere. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to take a year to work. I was working at like an office job and to upgrade some of my marks, and I applied again the following year. But it was interesting because the same week that I was applying to nursing school again, I was introduced to a network marketing company. And I remember like I was submitting my applications that week, and I remember finding this company and sitting down with my cousin who had joined like someone she knew that like kind of brought her in, and they just kind of showed me how this was an opportunity to have freedom, like to create your own schedule, to be your own boss, to make however much money you wanted to make. And I was like, this is why nothing has ever made sense to me before. This is why I've never resonated with a career, because I also remembered in that moment, like, yeah, I knew that I wanted freedom. I knew that I wanted to be successful and have like financial freedom as well. But again, I just didn't see how that was possible with a lot of the jobs. But again, just didn't question it, right? So when I found that network marketing opportunity, so many light bulbs went off, and I was like, okay, this is why nothing made sense. I'm supposed to follow this. Again, it was just a moment where I actually decided to follow my gut instead of listening to everyone else. And even though it was still a few months before I was getting any like welcome letters back or acceptance letters back, I just knew regardless of what happened, I was going to trust my gut and stick with this opportunity. And so I just secretly hoped that I wouldn't get in anywhere, so I didn't have to like disappoint my parents or like make that decision. But of course I got into all the schools that I applied for, and I was like, shit. So again, just went with my gut. I told my parents, they were not happy with me. They didn't get it at all. But I just had to trust myself, and yeah, did that for a few years. It was really great for a while, but after a while I just felt like I was on autopilot. I felt like I wasn't excited about what I was doing anymore. I felt like, I was just kind of bored. And I was oversending like Facebook DMs and asking someone I went to, or I had like sat with at lunch in grade 2 to like join my team. Like it just started to feel icky, to be honest. And I was like a little disappointed when that started happening, because I was like, I know I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur. I know I'm supposed to have this freedom. I know I'm supposed to have this, and this. Why isn't this working for me? And again, that same week, I stumbled across a coach, and I had a call with her, and she just showed me how I could like start a coaching business essentially, and then help other women find that fulfillment, help other women start businesses, help other women like with their personal development and mindset journey. And so I wasn't looking for a coach, and I didn't want to hire her. I was like, no, I need to like put money to this, and this. I don't have the time. And I made up all these excuses, but she just helped me see things from a different perspective. And that if I didn't do something different, I was always going to be in that same situation. So that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give it my all, because I know where I want to be. I know it's possible for me. And I'm just deciding that this is going to work. And that's how I started coaching. Before I actually didn't start with the name The Freedom Babe. I was just kellymarciniak.com for like the first year. And then I was like planning a webinar one week, and I was brainstorming all these ideas for the webinar name. And that's how I came up with The Freedom Babe. But I've always just been obsessed with lifestyle design and designing the life that I want to live, and creating a business that revolves around that, and that brings me that lifestyle, and that is in alignment. So that's how we've gotten to where we are now. And it started just with like one-on-one coaching with a few people, and now it's turned into like a signature group coaching program where I help women start online businesses, and then like a mastermind, and like smaller courses and stuff. So it's been a wild ride in the last 4 years, but it's been so much fun. Sorry, that was like a very long-winded answer.
That's amazing. That's quite a journey, and definitely a lot to unpack in that. When you realized that your business wasn't succeeding the way that you thought it would, how did you navigate those feelings?
So when I was in network marketing?
Yeah.
Yeah, at first I was taking it really personally. I was like, what the hell? Like, I'm a failure. Like, is anything ever going to stick with me? Is anything ever going to work? And it was actually a moment where I was doing my taxes, and I realized that for the year of taxes I was doing, I made less that year than I had the previous year. And I was really hard on myself. I'm always someone that's been hard on myself. And I was like, what the heck? Like, what am I doing wrong? And then I was really like, I was treating myself very poorly. Like, I was saying things to myself that I wouldn't ever say to like a friend. And usually a lot of us do that. And then I kind of had a moment where I was like, okay, well, I can continue being an asshole to myself, or I can choose to look at things from a different perspective, and I can choose to allow this to be a turning point. And that's when I asked myself, where am I going to be 1 year from now if I keep doing things the same way? And where am I going to be 1 year from now if I do things differently, if I choose to show up for myself in a different capacity? And then I realized, like, if I kept doing things the same way and I kept being like a victim to my circumstances, I was going to be in the same spot. And obviously it's not that I was in a terrible situation, but I just personally value personal growth so much, and I always want to be getting better and continuing to reinvent myself. So that's when I was like, okay, if I don't change what I'm doing, things are going to stay the same. And it was around that time too that I had connected with the coach, and it all just kind of came together in that moment. And I was like, I know that I don't have all the answers, but I know that getting this support is going to help me drastically shift the direction my life is heading in, drastically move towards my goals versus stay stagnant. And something that really helped too, or helped me trust that process, because I didn't have any reassurance. Like there was no one that could tell me this is 100% going to work for you, right? So it was really about me trusting myself. But when I hired that coach too, I saw things in her that I desired. I saw a business that I desired. I saw a lifestyle that I desired. So that helped me trust myself. I was like, okay, if I just listen to what she says and I do the things she tells me to do, because that's what she's done to get where she is, I can have that as well. So that was really, really helpful. So it kind of went from like being hard on myself to choosing to let go of the victim mentality to choosing to show up for myself and trust like that vision that I had.
Amazing. And that's such good advice, because a lot of us are so hard on ourselves when we're not living up to the level of expectations that we set on ourselves in business or even in our personal lives, right? So it's definitely good advice for everybody tuning in that is going through that, in order to navigate those feelings that they're experiencing, to be able to come out of the other side being a better version of themselves.
100%. And it's like you being hard on yourself isn't getting you anywhere. And I still have moments where I'm hard on myself and I'm like, what is this accomplishing right now? Right. And sometimes it's like, I think our ego brings those feelings up, and we are hard on ourselves because it's almost like a way to control the situation, or a way that we're trying to control the situation, or weirdly in a way make ourselves feel better. But it doesn't do any good at all. So it's like, when you can recognize that, and if you're in a moment where you're shaming yourself or pitying yourself for something, that's where I also like to connect with my higher self. I didn't know this back then, but now it's like, what would my higher self tell me? And it's definitely polar opposite of like, you suck, you can't do this, you're not doing a good enough job.
100%. Now, for those that are really scared to move out of the status quo, the comfortable space that they're in, or the known, right? How would you encourage them, or what advice would you give them to step out of that space and try something new, go after those goals or their dreams?
That's a good question. I think it goes back to looking at what is it that you want, and honestly asking yourself, is staying in my comfort zone going to get there? Like going back to what I said, if I do the same things I'm doing now, is this going to get me to where I want? And you have to be so, so, so honest with yourself. And on the other side of that, I know a lot of people stay in their comfort zone because they are afraid to take that action. The action that's going to get them to where they want to be feels really scary. But what I always say to my clients is the fear is always stronger when you're not taking action than it is when you're taking the action. So when you're doing the same things over and over and not getting the results, when you're not doing the thing you know you need to do, that fear is taking up so much space and energy in your brain and in your body, because you have so much time to think about it, right? Like you're not taking the motion. So all you're really doing is thinking about that thing. And there's a lot of room for that fear to exist when you're not taking the action. However, if you take one small step, if you, like, let's say, reached out to a person who you thought would be a good fit, or you started planning the webinar, or you just started brainstorming your business ideas. Like, yes, it feels uncomfortable to start taking the action towards it, but once you get started and you start creating that momentum, you get into like this action zone. And when you're in that place where you're taking the action, there physically is less energy and less space for that fear to coexist, because your brain is now occupied with all the things that you're doing to continue that action and keep that momentum going. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's such great advice. When you created your business, now obviously you had your network marketing business, but coaching is a little bit different as well. Did you have a plan? Did you know what you were getting into? Did you know how to start a coaching business? What was that whole experience like?
Absolutely not. I didn't even know coaching was a thing until maybe like a month or two before that. What ended up happening was my friend who was in network marketing with me, we were both kind of in the same place, like oh, this is taking so long. Like, what's going on? Why don't we have this freedom yet? Why can't we quit our jobs yet? And this was back when like Facebook groups were a really big thing with the coaching industry. And she actually, it was Amanda Francis. She found Amanda Francis's Facebook group and like showed me, and I think she signed up for one of her courses, or she was also hiring a coach at that time, and we would just talk all the time. She was like my biz bestie, and she was telling me about it, and she had kind of explained the coaching industry and how she was going to work with a coach to like help start her own coaching business. And I was like, wait, this is a thing? Like, you can get paid to help other people improve their lives and to like become the best versions of themselves. And it was just kind of like that light bulb moment where I was like, this is actually what I've been waiting for, because I just, since I got involved with network marketing, I became obsessed with personal development, and I loved that personal development industry. So in that moment, I was like, whoa, like this is amazing. But I didn't really think much else of it. I was like, yeah, I want to do this, but like that, I don't know how, like, but that sounds really cool. And it was kind of around that same time that I had a call with who ended up being my coach. And it was just basically trusting her. Like, she was the one that was like, I can show you how to build the website, like get this all launched, come up with your services, get the clients and all of that. And it was just trusting her, but I had no clue what I was doing. And I had like, thank God I hired her, because I probably would still be trying to figure out how to build a website 4 years later. Like, it's confusing, and that's what I would recommend as well. And I'm not just saying this because like I'm a coach, but you like learn from someone else, like invest in yourself and invest in that process to be laid out for you, because it's going to save you so much time, energy, and money to just learn how to do it one way than trying to Google everything. But yeah, I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't even know that I wanted to do business coaching right away. I thought I was going to do more of like, the personal development mindset coaching. But once I went through that process of building my business, I was like, wow, I wish I had this a couple years ago. So many other women need to know how to do this too. So yeah, you kind of just have to like jump in blind. I always say, especially in the early days, like ignorance really is bliss.
Yes.
It's like, don't overthink it, just start. And yeah, you're probably going to look back and cringe and be like, oh my God, what was I doing? But I think that's actually such a powerful thing, because that shows you how much you've grown. And if you're waiting till you feel like you've put yourself together in the perfect way and you're sharing your message in the perfect way, you've waited way too long, and people don't need you to be perfect in order to help them. And honestly, perfect is unrelatable. And I've definitely had the moments where I've held myself back because I feel like it's not perfect enough, or I'm scared to share the imperfections. But that's something big I've learned along the way too, is people relate to you when you share that vulnerability and you share what you've gone through. And when they see that you're making progress through that, or that you're on the other side of that, that's when they want to work with you, because they're like, okay, she was here, which is where I'm at right now, but now she's here, which is where I want to be. So I need to learn from her.
Now, when you started coaching, did you have any fears of coaching other people? Like, did you ever doubt yourself or feel like maybe you didn't know enough to be able to help them?
100%. I was like, when I got my first client, I was like, oh my God, like, what if I fail? What if she doesn't get any results? What if she wants her money back? All this stuff. And especially with business coaching, it's very interesting, because when you start a business, you haven't necessarily built a successful business yet. You're starting brand new. When you start offering your services, there's a point in time where you're going to have not worked with anyone and you're offering your services, right? So was definitely some imposter syndrome that came up. And on top of that, I had family and friends who were like, but you're not successful yet. Like, how are you going to help other people be successful? So that was definitely like really hard. But at the end of the day, it just came back to trusting and knowing that I could help people, and knowing that I only had to be a few steps ahead of someone in order to help them. I don't need to have built $1 million business before I help someone. I have gone through the steps. I believed in where I was going. I trusted where I was going, and I knew that I could help a few people start their businesses at the minimum. And here's the thing too. It's like once I get my first client, I can now teach other people how to get clients, but that's going to kind of happen simultaneously, right? Like I'm not going to be working with clients and teaching them how to get clients when I haven't had a client, because I need to gain that client first in order to teach them how to get the client. Do you know what I mean? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it just came back to, I like 100% doubted myself all the time. But at the end of the day, I also just really had a lot of faith in myself and trusted that I could do it. And I just really knew that things were happening for a reason in that moment too. So even though I didn't have all the answers, even though I was like, what the hell am I doing? At the end of the day, there was still some trust that existed there. And I chose to I obviously had my moments where I trusted the fear more than I trusted my intuition. But I feel ultimately it came back to trust. Like when I would get the clients, when I would get the results and all of that, it was because I was trusting in the unknown and trusting what was coming for me more than trusting my ego or my fear.
Yeah. Trust comes down to very like the root of everything, really. You have to trust your gut. You have to trust your abilities and your knowledge and everything that you've experienced that's brought you to where you are, and how you're able to take that and share it with somebody and be able to help them with whatever they're experiencing. Trust is such a big thing to build.
Totally. And it happens over time. And that's what I see hold a lot of women back to, is they don't have all the answers, or they don't know 100% what's going to happen. And it's like, you never will. Like that trust is going to come again from you putting yourself out there and constantly taking that action.
Totally. Now, I love that you mentioned friends or family and just not being totally on board. They always have the best intentions. They want to see you do really well in life and whatnot. But sometimes with this type of business and whatnot, the online world, they don't always get it. And I've experienced it. I've seen many people kind of struggle with that as well. So, having gone through that yourself, what do you suggest for others in that same struggle? So, do you think that it's best to wait to share that with friends and family until you've launched, so that they're not getting into your mind or into your head with all of their thoughts and advice and whatnot, and you're just kind of staying in your bubble and being really focused on what you're wanting to achieve? Like, how do you navigate that?
That's a good question. I think it depends. If it's going to totally rock you and shake you and be really hard for you to come back if someone doesn't approve, then yes, maybe hold off. But I think there's deeper work to be done there. I think it's looking at, why is it that I'm letting this person have so much control over me? Why is it that this person's opinion would really shake me so much? And doing like some shadow work, some inner work on why that's happening, because you also want to heal that belief, right? Like you don't want to just put a band-aid on it in terms of holding, like keeping it to yourself because of what other people will say. You want to make sure you're healing that as well. But at the same time, I think it's in a way a good thing for people to not always get it or be supportive, because it makes you grow thick skin. And I was someone who, and I still am at times, like I could be very sensitive, or I was very sensitive to opinions of other people. And depending on the people, there was a lot of people whose opinions would shake me and I would take it very seriously. But I think the process of building my business and having people who didn't get it has really now just made me not care what other people think, and made me trust my vision with so much more conviction than I trust the opinions of other people. And something that really helped me with when it came to other people's opinions was asking myself, is this someone I would trade places with? Do I want to trade places? And there's obviously, like, I'm not making fun of anyone. Like, it's just for an example. Do I want to trade places with this person who is working a 9 to 5? Do I want to trade places with this friend of mine who is selling windows? Do I want to trade places with this person who is still in network marketing and they're not doing like, it's not like they're seeing a ton of results either. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And even still, there was still some people who had their opinions that were quote unquote successful, but it was just like, but they've never done this. They've never been in this situation. And at the end of the day, people's opinions reflects their beliefs about themselves. It's more of a projection about what they believe to be true about themselves than it is about what they believe to be true about you. So if someone's thinking, oh, that's not going to work, they're basically in their brain, they don't always realize they're doing this. They're thinking, oh, if I were to do that, that wouldn't work. Or they're thinking, if I were to try that, that would be uncomfortable or awkward or weird, right? And that's what you have to remember too. It's usually not a reflection about their belief about you. It's their belief about themselves that they're projecting onto you. So yeah, in a nutshell, if it's going to help you, yes, but do that inner work. And at the same time, look at this as an opportunity to grow thick skin and to build that trust in yourself, because people saying no is going to, when you can come back to your vision and trust you, that's going to build that trust in yourself. And what I would also say around this too is surround yourself with people who do get it. Have that, like, find people, whether it's online or in person, that are building businesses, that are like, if it's like weight loss, for example, that are like committed to losing weight or working out or whatever. Like, have a circle or a few people that have similar goals with whatever it is that you're working towards, because when you can connect with them and have the support from them, that's going to be a game changer as well.
Oh, that's such great advice. And I love how you changed the way to look at that type of scenario. And I 100% agree that it's going to help you build thick skin, which you absolutely need, because it's not always sunshine and rainbows online, and you are going to experience no's and things like that in your business. And that's just going to help you be able to get through it a lot easier.
Exactly.
Now, with showing up in your community, you do this very well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can have confidence in ourselves, in the knowledge that we have, and be able to show up authentically online, on social media, in our Insta stories, in our Insta post captions, things like that, and be able to share the real stuff behind the scenes.
I love that question. Okay, well, first off, let me say I was never a confident person. I was like so shy. Like, the idea of, I remember when my coach told me to like do an Instagram story like of my face, or to like go live, I thought I was gonna vomit. And it took time. So the first thing is just start, and just do one thing to get you uncomfortable, whether it's posting the selfie, whether it's like posting a little 15-second story of your face talking about something. Like, just get started and start small and commit to getting out of your comfort zone, because it's never going to feel 100% easy, but you just have to start and remember that these things are going to grow you, and eventually it's going to be something you don't even think twice about. And then in terms of like having the confidence with your content, what I would say about that is, and this like will still trip me up sometimes, like I still second guess my content sometimes, but you have to remember who you're posting for. So for so long, I would hold myself back from showing up online or posting certain things, because I'd be like, oh, well, what is like this person I went to high school with gonna think? Or what is like this ex gonna think? Or what is so-and-so gonna think? Or people I used to work with, if I'm talking about like how the 9-to-5 world wasn't for me. And I was just like so afraid of people either A, judging me, B, making fun of me, or offending others. And the thing is, I'm not running my business for the girl I went to high school with necessarily. I'm not running my business for the ex or the ex coworkers. I'm running my business for the women who know that they are meant for more, who want that freedom, who desire it more than anything and need to find a way to get it, need that inspiration, need that motivation. So when you go back to thinking of who am I writing, and sometimes you write the message for you too. Sometimes it's posting it because it's making you feel good. But going back to asking yourself, who am I writing this for? And if it's that ideal client that you're writing it for, keep her in mind when you're writing the caption, when you're talking on Instagram stories, when you're posting the photo or whatever, and show up for them because they need you. And it creates a ripple effect, right? Like, it's so funny because you were like, when you said how I post great content, I'm like, oh, like I don't think of myself as like, oh, I post really amazing content, right? But like, that's the thing, again, going back to us just being hard on ourselves, but also if I wasn't doing that, now I have this community who thinks that I post really great content. But if I let that fear of showing up or fear of what other people would think or offending others hold me back, then I wouldn't have created this ripple effect where I've now inspired other women to start creating content as well, right? So you have to really just remember, who am I doing this for, and what positive ripple effects is it going to create? What positive things are going to happen for the people who this is meant for? How is it going to change their day? How is it maybe going to change their week or their life even? What amazing things get to happen for them, and showing up for those people versus the people that you're afraid of.
100%. Oh, that's such great advice. I remember when I first started posting on Insta stories and writing captions and whatnot, the first Insta story was a nightmare. I think I re-recorded it like 27 times.
Oh,
And
yeah.
every time I did it, I was getting so mad at myself because I was like fumbling over my words and just getting really nervous because I was envisioning all these people going to watch it. But I love how you say, think of the person, like your ideal client, and think of them when you're doing everything. And I started doing that, but I wasn't thinking of my ideal client. I was thinking of a friend, somebody that I was comfortable with. And I would think that I was talking to that person every time that I did a story. And it just made it a lot easier, right?
Totally.
Like when you just focus in on, you're just talking to this one person versus you're like sharing with the entire community, which can be overwhelming at first.
100%. And yeah, that's a great point to think of too. Like, who do I want to hear this, or who needs to hear this, or who is easy to talk to that I can pretend, and just like picture someone else on the other side of that. And I've definitely been there too with like the re-recording. And sometimes I still have those moments too. But I think the best thing you can do is just hit record, start talking. Don't overthink your message too much, because that's when I find, for me, when I just start blabbering, that's usually what like lands the best with others. And something that helped me at the beginning too, and someone else taught me this, was to walk as you're talking. So if you like are going for a walk outside, like that's a good time to be talking to the camera. It just makes you feel a bit more candid and less like you're talking to a camera.
I like that. I'm actually going to try that next time.
Yeah,
I think that would definitely, because you're keeping yourself busy in a way, so it kind of
yeah.
distracts you from what you're doing a little.
Yeah, it works really well. And that's what I would do. If I was to go back to like all my first Instagram stories, I'm always walking.
Awesome. Now, in your opinion, what is the most important things to focus on when you're growing your business? So what's actually going to move the needle forward? And I've heard so many different things about this. Like, I need to be posting 5 blog posts a week or 3 blog posts a week, or I need to be doing X amount of things, or like it gets so confusing as to what is the absolute critical that you should be doing every week or every month, whatever that timeline is, to be able to see that needle moving forward.
It's like those revenue generating activities, right? So I think it's going to depend on what your business is specifically, but that's what you can ask yourself. Like, what are the things that I do in my business that actually grow the business, that actually make the money? So in coaching, like what I teach my clients is when you're new, like you should be hosting free training. Like basically, okay, one thing is keep growing your email list and keep growing your audience. So I'm just still a big believer. A lot of people like are all about Instagram, which I agree. And I'm all about Instagram too, but you still want to be growing your email list because so many changes have been happening with Instagram lately. Who knows? the future of it, right? And if your audience is all on Instagram and Instagram were to go away, like, do you still have a business, right? So be growing your email list, and there's different ways to do that. Like, you can come up with like a free like ebook or something like that. But something I have my clients do is host like a free live event or free training every month, at least once a month. You should honestly probably be doing it more than that if you're brand new and want to create that consistency right away. And I still do this in my business like every month as well. And it works. But that's where you can like, yeah, host a free training that you do on Zoom or Instagram live, and have like a landing page for it and get people to sign up for that, because that's going to build your list. But then they're also coming to this free event that you're hosting, let's say on Zoom, and you run this free training where you're going to help them on a certain topic. And then at the end of it or throughout, you can also be sharing how that's what you help your clients with. And this is really effective because it's building that like know and trust factor with your audience. And when they see like those trainings are still give like so much value in them. And when they see how much value they're getting from a free training with you, and then think about, okay, imagine if I were to work with her, it would be so helpful because this has already helped me so much. It becomes more of a no-brainer, right? So definitely growing your email list, posting regular content on social media, hosting those like free live trainings and stuff. But like engaging with your audience too. So I always tell my clients, like, don't do a free training and then just wait for the program to sell out. Like, you have to still show up. So showing up is really big, but making sure you're leading from a place of value versus just constantly asking for the sale. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Now, what about blog posts? Is posting on your blog dead?
I mean, I don't personally, I kind of look at Instagram as my blog now, to be honest. I don't personally post a ton on my blog anymore. I have the podcast now, which we create a blog post for, but I think the blog is still definitely great, but I think what you should do is repurpose the content and also be sharing like a snippet of it in your Instagram post and be like, read more on the blog, link is in bio or whatever. And you can be like sharing that on stories as well too, and like putting the link in your bio or swipe up if you have it. But with the blog, like the blog is definitely good because it's continuing to nurture your audience, but you're not always a blog isn't necessarily going to have a call to action all the time, but maybe every once in a while, like if you're sharing a blog on like my top 3 tips for a productive day, and you help your clients with productivity, then maybe at the end of that blog post, it makes sense to be like, are you struggling with productivity? Like, click here to book a free one-on-one call with me where we can talk about blah, blah, blah. So I think if you're blogging, use it on different platforms and utilize that. And then maybe have some sort of call to action at the end where they can like learn more or book in a free call, something that's going to lead to like a revenue generating activity, if that makes sense.
Totally. And I love that you mentioned repurposing your content, because I used to always think I had to create new content for everything. But really, say you have a blog post, just like you said, you can create a blog or an Instagram post with a caption that's going to lead them to your blog post, or you can include a snippet of that in your newsletter and lead them to your blog post. And you can like spread that around to all the different platforms and channels that you're on.
Totally. And that's where it goes back to working smarter versus harder, right? Like, you don't need to make it harder for yourself than it needs to be. And that post is going to be so valuable for so many different people. So why not spread it across different platforms so you can reach more people?
Totally. Now let's chat about the Freedom Babe. What do you have to offer your community through it? We talked a little bit about coaching and whatnot, but what do they entail? What does that experience look like?
The coaching experience?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'll give the example of my signature program. So in the Freedom Babe Business Bootcamp, that's like my signature program where I help women design their dream freedom lifestyles. And then we help you tap into your purpose and build a business that's connected with that purpose. And for so long, we were really heavily focusing on the business building aspect. So all like the tangible steps and like the more masculine things and what you need to do to get that business up and running. But recently we've given the content a total makeover, and now we also include a lot of mindset and energy work. And it's interesting because once we've always had clients get really, really great results from this program. But once we've started adding in the mindset and energy work, like we've seen that those results grow to a whole other level. So we really help you identify where you may have a limiting belief or a mindset or energy block. And we give you like the tools and support to release that. But then we're also helping you get clear on who the version of you who has that super successful business, who's living that freedom lifestyle is, and how you can embody her energetically, because success and building a successful business is so much more than just creating the website and doing those launches. Like at the end of the day, if your mindset and energy aren't aligned with what you desire, that's going to be a huge, 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 huge block for you. So we now really help our clients with releasing those blocks and stepping into that next version of themselves. Because when you do that, along with taking those physical steps and along with taking the action, that's when things really like grow exponentially. And that's the catalyst for this massive growth too. So that's what we do in that program. We do that in all of my, in every way that I work with my clients, really, because it's so important. But with that program specifically, we do that over a course of 4 months. And by the end of those 4 months, our clients are launching their businesses. They're getting clients. They've been like manifesting 10K months through their businesses as well, which has been so amazing. So it's really fun to see the transformation that occurs over the 4 months, because when these women finish the program after our 4 months together, they are totally different and just totally at a higher level and just at that next level version of themselves than they were when they first started.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that everything that you share in that program, you make it really well-rounded to touch on to the different aspects that they will go through. And I love that you include, the personal development side as well as the business, because I definitely think that they go hand in hand. In order to succeed, you need to grow on a personal level. You need to focus on that.
Totally. And I always say too, like when you grow, your business is going to grow. So if you feel like you're not, and again, it's not that we have to constantly be striving for more necessarily, but it's like, are you still letting the same beliefs block you? Are you still feeling crappy about this, and this? And if you are, and if you're not feeling like there's progress there, then that's going to be an energetic block to like the abundance that you should be receiving in your business.
100%. Now, if anybody wants to learn more about you, where do you hang out the most? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, I am on Instagram the most, so definitely come hang out there. I'm at The Freedom Babe on Instagram, and then I also have the Freedom Babe podcast, which we release episodes every week. So those are the best 2 spots. And if you wanted to check out the website, it's just thefreedombabe.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for sharing such incredible advice on how we can get out of our own way and design a life and a business that we love. I know so many are going to benefit from hearing your story, your experience, and your advice.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to www.projectloveco.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another unplugged conversation.